Okay, we are live. We're back a little bit. So, thank you very much for watching. Welcome back to Stackhouse Knives. Yeah, thanks very much for tuning in this evening. So, for this particular stream, we're going to be making a hole punch. I do apologise about last week's stream. It actually cut out the internet. So, the really good thing about the stream is that I can communicate with you guys directly and see what you're commenting and all of this really awesome stuff. But the drawback is that the stream cut out last Wednesday, so bit of troubleshooting. We'll work that out as we go and as these streams become more popular. But what happened in last week's stream was that we made a cutting punch. So that was me, and I think the stream cut out as soon as I went onto the grinder, and then when I came back, the stream had cut out. So yeah, apologies for that. So that was what we ended up making this time round, and that was what I used. I used my maker's mark, the little S, to stamp into that guy. So yeah, that was the main thing, and that was made from some tool steel. This evening, sorry, I'm going to be making a similar punch, but it's just a standard flat rounded punch. The one that I currently have is getting a little bit too mushroomed, and I think it's good to have another one handy. So this is what I'm going to be doing for this particular stream this evening, to just to make and see how it goes. I might make a bunch of punches. We'll see how we go, and probably incorporate some tongs as well. But the start of the project is, again, I've got some really awesome plasticine. I want to make it's quite a simple shape. So I've got a round piece of material, and I want to make a taper and then grind the end off. That's pretty much the shape. So the idea is that when I'm hammering the metal, I'm going to want to pinch the steel and push it out like so that it will form a taper on the material, and then I'm going to turn the material 90 degrees and taper it this way. That's going to help stretch all that metal. Just a few blows on each face to make it a square cross section. Once it becomes a square cross section, I can work on making it octagonal. Once it's octagonal, then I can start making it round. So you want to keep working these faces until you start to form a nice round cone shape towards the end of the tool. That'll also be the functional part of the tool as well, the bit that actually makes it work. So yeah, I've got the steel in the fire now, and I've got the forge running at the moment, so you can check that out. But I'm going to get straight into it and do a bit of talking as well. I'm on my own for this evening's stream, so I'm just going to try my best to do some comments, and yeah, I hope you're all having a good evening. Thanks so much for watching. Grab my safety gear. Okay, so far I've just taken the round steel and taken it to a cross section. You can see those corners producing. If I hold it like that, see it's nice and square. It's getting a little bit of cupping as well, but that's okay. We can manage that. But nice tapered cross section, square to start with. Want it square, then I want it to be round, or sorry, not round but octagonal. Once I get it octagonal, start pushing that material that way and forcing it all out that way, like that. So I'll put it back in. So I hope you're all having a wonderful evening. Thanks so much for tuning in and watching some pretty glowing metal. Hi Vaughan, how's it going? Thanks so much for watching. So I'm making a really simple, kind of flat blacksmith punch. These are really good tools. I actually got the guys in the last evening class to make a really simplified version of this tool. The idea is that this is a really important tool for making tongs. So every little pivot section of tongs, such as these guys, every little pivot that's on these guys is forced and made by this particular tool. So for blacksmithing, really fundamental tool, really important for starting, but also a really simple tool as well. So I would highly recommend getting into making this type of tool. And for our last evening's stream, which ended up cutting out, so I do apologise about that, but we made a flat hot cut punch. So essentially it's a longer, taller version, and it's designed for putting the tool over the hot metal and then whacking it to start cutting the steel while it's hot. This is a more kind of handheld version, and an anvil mounted version would be one of these guys, a little bit heavier, takes a lot more of a beating, but this is a hot cut tool, but it's square at the other end so that it will fit into the hardy hole of an anvil. So that will slot in there like that, and it's a mounted stationary tool. Whereas this one that I made in the last stream is designed so you can kind of cut corners out of things. You can actually almost, once the tool kind of bluntens a little bit, you can actually use it more of a texturing tool, so you can put little lines into it. And if you got really creative, you can make some really awesome punches. So you could have a curve, you could have a disc shape, you could have sorry, not a disc shape, a circular shape. You could even have a cross, or you could just cross like that. You can do it that way as well. But whatever way it works. But the main thing is that making these punches is such an important part for getting into blacksmithing. And yeah, for this evening we're going to be making a kind of quite a very simple tool, but really important for making other tools. So it's all about making tools to make another tool, to make another tool, to make that tool for another tool. So that's essentially what it is. So I'm going to hammer the steel again, and then you can come and then you can see what I've done. So I'm going to take the square section and try to make an octagonal section for the material before I start rounding it. I may run out of time. I've only got about 25 seconds of heat and hammering time, so I'll see how much I can get out in this time. So I did actually run out of time. I've got a longer, more narrow version of what I started with earlier. Still a nice square cross section. The cupping that forms towards the metal is where the metal kind of rolls over itself, so it kind of almost curls. You can just file that or grind it later, but if you kind of keep your eye on it, you can actually hammer the metal back down on itself by hammering the back to flatten the back. Flatten the tip of the metal off. once you've done that, you just kind of manage the shape a bit more so you don't get lost. So yeah, I'll get onto the octagonal cross section on this next heat. I didn't have enough time this heat, but it's looking pretty tidy. And this is 1-inch tool steel, so it's really hard to hammer. You'd actually use a power hammer or a heavier hammer with maybe someone else to help you, because it's quite hard steel to hammer. If I was to hammer some mild steel, it would be easy as to hammer, but this stuff is really hard, and you have to put a lot of weight and a lot of energy into it, and make sure you keep breathing as well. So yeah, I'll put it back in now and then talk about it a little bit more. As the material goes back into the forge again, my heat times will become, it won't take nearly as long to heat up. So I started with a really thick piece of metal. Obviously a large piece of metal is going to need a lot of heat to go into it. This time when I start heating this section, might be ready in about 2.5 minutes or so. Then it's ready to start creating an octagonal cross section. Instead of grinding the round shape, I will forge it to the best of my ability and get on with that. Yeah. So we'll get that heated up. Okay, I'm going to check some comments real quick. Look at the screen like a weirdo. Good morning, Christian. Where are you living? It's literally a mandrel. Yeah, pretty much. I actually have my mandrel, my regal one, which is kind of dented now, but it's literally like a mandrel if you think of it that way in jewellery terms. What I love is how the jewellery aspect of things sort of, it builds up, and it kind of correlates as well. So that tool will be like this for jewellery, but for blacksmiths it'll be similar. Yeah. Alright, sorry, I'm being a weirdo again looking at the screen because I am on my own tonight. Why do you tap the anvil? So it's a rhythm. I want to keep my rhythm. If I put the it sounds weird, but if I put the hammer down and just leave it on the anvil, I have to put more energy to pick the hammer back up. So if I let it bounce, which it bounces quite easily, then it actually takes a lot of the energy out of it, and it keeps up my rhythm. Because I want to make sure that I've got a good rhythm when I'm hammering, so every time I can put 100% of my time and effort into it, instead of wasting energy. And even if it's like a quarter of a second picking the hammer back up, that's a quarter of my time, my energy, and I want to put 100% into it. So I hope that answers the question for you, Vaughn. Devin. So I'm actually using some train spring, Bevan. I have no idea where it's from, but it's really old, and I've got a piece of it here. I'll bring it for you. I've got a bunch of these. So that's the actual steel there, and it's about 1 inch diameter. So I mean, there's my hand. That's how big these pieces of spring steel are. For punches, they've been really good. I've actually been tempted to make some knives out of them as well. Good for a lot of things, but I am recycling old steel, and as long as it's good steel, it's good. From Sweden. Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Overseas. Okay. Whoops, what am I doing? Air cooled. I'm not sure. I mean, I just kind of do a very kind of generic heat treatment where I quench the tools in oil, and I've gotten a good response from that. So I really don't know the actual the proper heat treat method, but if I dip it in oil and I temper it at this temperature and it's hard and tough for a punch, that's all I really care about. That's the most important thing. Yeah, hope you're all having an awesome evening, and I hope I've answered all the questions. Obviously ask more questions if you don't know, but yeah, I'm going to go in for another heat now to try to make an octagonal kind of tapered cross-section punch thing, and hopefully I'll get to that shape. We shall see. Okay, so it actually went from octagonal to round very quickly. So that transition, once I started to get an 8-sided piece of metal and these kind of inline kind of flat facets all the way along, I started rolling the metal over the anvil very slowly, taking very small rotations every time I hit the metal. And in the right light, hopefully you can see, I've got some kind of facets now all over the piece. If you look at the end of it, it's quite round. And that cupping is kind of manageable. I'll show you how I get rid of that. You can just grind it or cut it away, which is great. But because we're blacksmithing, we can force that metal back into itself to get a slightly more square section. Once I've done that, I'll probably flip it around and try to elongate the other section of the metal. Just a little bit, not too much. Yeah, but this is just tapering on a very large 1-inch diameter piece of tool steel, train spring. So I really don't know exactly what the steel is, but it's good steel and it's really awesome. So I'll put that back in for another heat really quickly, and yeah, I'll come back to you guys in a minute. Okay, so, whoops, okay, cool, yeah, so, how's it going? So we've gone from this kind of square section metal, this is an exaggeration, and it's square at the end, kind of a bit lumpy there, that's okay, and now I ended up hammering these corners, so I put it on like a diamond axis, and then I've gone and forged those corners down. And once you get the corners, once the corners become faces and the faces become parallel in thickness to the original square faces, you know you're on the right track from being quite symmetrical and quite in line. And it's also really important to keep rotating the material all the way around so that it doesn't become slightly offset, because I have a habit of working just two angles. So I'll tip it over one way, work it back that way, because the anvil's doing the other half of the work for me. So doing that is really efficient because you can get a lot of movement happening, but you end up with a material that's like slightly offset. So if you turn it, it'll it won't be quite centered. So you have to kind of come back and manage that a little bit. So yeah, we've gone from octagonal. Again, this is an exaggeration. Octagonal. And now we're kind of round. So we're getting closer to that ideal punch, and then this is a physical version of the same kind of punch. This has been grinded over time because the cutting edge of the tool becomes kind of blunt and slightly worn, which will cause it to round off, and you don't want it round, you want it quite sharp and square. So when you cut 90% of the way through the hot metal on one side, you can flip it over, wait till it goes dark on the other side, and then just kind of shear the rest of the metal off. That gives you a really nice hole and a nice little plug. But we won't be doing a demo of that. I'm just kind of shaping the tool, giving you an idea of how quickly you can get that done. I've done 3 heats so far, 3 or 4, I'm not sure. You might want to check back on the video and see how many times I've hit the steel. But yeah, you can get quite a lot of work done. It's just about the metal being in the furnace, nice and hot, and making your time worth it. Not just mucking around, just choosing to do one little job one time and then putting it back in the fire, doing another little job the second time. So you make use of your time because it's so short and narrow. So I'm going to go ahead and do another heat now, work on the anvil now to kind of tidy it up. I'm also going to flatten the face off, so I'm going to have it vertical like the face of the anvil to manage the cutting point of the tool. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so now I've got and taken that nice and round, so it's nice and tidy. The cupping's kind of slightly disappearing now. You can see it's very faint, but definitely a lot more manageable. Also really good because you can, don't hit black steel, but you can still sort of cold work a cherry red color. This helps plenish the steel surface instead of it oxidizing and going all weird and flaky and yuck. You can actually get a nice, so you can show you on the camera, probably not, but you can get a nice planished rounded face and finish on the metal. So I'm going to turn this guy around and start working the other side. Probably 1 or 2 more heats is all we need, and that tool will be pretty much finished. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in and watching the stream. I hope you're enjoying what's happening and what you're seeing. So we've gone from that rounded section. Now I've got a really fat section on the other side, so I want to take a nice long temperature heat so that it won't be too cold. So I want it nice and hot so I can make my efforts worth it, my time and energy put into forming it worth it. So I want to come and almost do the same thing on the other side from what I did before. Just tapering that guy, and it'll be kind of fat in the middle and tapered at both ends. You make sure both of these guys are centered. It'll help center the tool as you're actually putting force and impact onto the back face. That'll help transfer to the cutting face of the tool and make it cut really nicely. Some people have kind of flat backed tools, like this one doesn't have much, or when I first made it, didn't have much of a taper, but now it's kind of mushroomed over so much that it doesn't really matter. I am going to make a new one, so hopefully that's what we're going to be making for today. But yeah, having a little bit of a taper on your tools helps center that impact so it doesn't wobble around too much as the energy is traveling through the tool into the workpiece of whatever you're trying to hole punch. So we're going to be working on the back section of the tool, getting a slightly more broad taper, not so sharp and acute, but something a bit more broad so that it just helps that impact thing. And that really depends on what kind of tool you're making. Sometimes you want quite a broad face for some jobs, and then for this job I'd like it to be a little bit more tapered. So yeah, if you've got any questions, let me know in the comment section and ask away. If you're enjoying the stream, chuck a like and let me know if you're enjoying it. I'd love to hear from you guys. So yeah, cheers. Okay, so that's me working on the other side now. Square cross section, so if you've just joined the stream, thanks so much for watching. What I did to start with is going to make a rounded punch on this side, so I'm making a hole punch similar to this guy. So just a nice simple blacksmith hole punch for driving rivet openings for tongs. So the idea is I've just worked the other side of the tool to elongate the material and also create a taper on both sides. This helps with the force and the impact being driven into the tool, and it'll means that the energy will be transferred very evenly and equally, rather than finding all sorts of paths and problems as it goes down the tool. Sometimes it'll veer left or veer right. That can be problematic because you've only got 10 seconds to work. So yeah, but that's what you can see there. quite tidy. Probably 1 or 2 more heats to go. That should be done, and we'll probably wrap the stream up from there. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the stream so far, and yeah, let me know if you're enjoying it. Cheers. One more heat, 2 more heats. Okay, let me get some water really quickly. Being hydrated, very important. Got some water. So what are we all up to this evening? What are you doing? Just finished work, or still got work to do? Maybe you didn't work today, it was your day off. Yeah, let me know. I'm curious to hear how it's going. And if you're watching from overseas, that's amazing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Also, if you are overseas watching, let me know what the quality is like on your end of the stream, because it looks great from my end, but it may not look that great from your end. So interesting to know. A bit of constructive feedback would be good, just to know how well it's working. We'll get a few more streams going before we're going to start working on a higher quality camera and a high quality audio. But at the moment, we tried a couple of different devices on the first time of the stream. My mobile phone actually ended up being the best audio-wise and visually. So we're keeping with that guy for now, and then later on we'll work to newer devices and slightly better resolution on those devices. So yeah. Cheers. Hey, how's it going, Justin? Washing the dishes. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's awesome. Washing the dishes. Nice. I actually do that a lot when I'm watching, or when I'm listening to TED Talks, or when I'm listening to YouTubers do either a stream or a video pre-recorded. It's really good. You're like, okay, got all these dishes to do, and I'll just put the stream on. I'm good. I'm good to just chill out. That's awesome. Okay, I'm going to go in for another heat now. Tuck my safety gear on. the taper there. I'm probably gonna be happy with that. I'm gonna heat treat it later on. To kill two birds with one stone. Exactly. Get the dishes done and get a kind of pleasure out of it as well. But that's the tool, nice and centered. I'll just put it down and show you the whole tool. So it's quite fat in the middle, quite fat in this section. Nice taper there, nice taper on the cutting face, and yeah. So I'll probably heat treat that guy just at a later stage. It's kind of hard to get heat treats done on stream because their time is a big one. But I'll probably get the students in this evening class after I've done the stream to get an idea of the heat treatment. So yeah, that's pretty much the stream. I really hope you enjoyed me making a punch, and I think a total of 5 heats. So from 5 heats I had a very short stumpy piece of steel, and then I ended up with quite a long tapered, almost like a bullet kind of shaped material, bullet shaped tool anyway. I think it's centered. I might edit it a little bit later on, but the fundamentals are there, and yeah, no, so essentially tool done. I'll see that on the floor, make sure it's not burning anything. So yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this evening's stream. So I ended up starting just a little bit earlier to get that guy done. If you've just logged into the stream, it maybe pull the timeline back a little bit so you can catch up on what we have just finished or what I've just forged. I'll probably do a post of this particular video at a later stage. It'll be uploaded to Facebook and to YouTube. And yeah, I hope you all had a wonderful night, and I hope you enjoyed this evening stream. Every Wednesday at the moment before my evening classes, so trying to get some nice consistency with these streams, and I'm really enjoying them. So yeah, thank you so much. Have a good evening.